Are you struggling to make great silky milk for your espressos? Welcome to our series on how to froth milk. We're going to be covering the basics of actually frothing milk, how to stretch properly for a latte, flat white or a cappuccino, and then delve into other things like pouring latte art and making an amazing milk coffee. So stick about. Today we're going to cover how to froth milk, and we're going to show you a few simple methods that you can use to practice. G'day, Luke from Artistic Coffee Roasters here. Welcome to our series on milk. Today we're starting with the basics on how to actually froth milk. So we're going to cover a few of the techniques and a couple of really cool ways that you can practice your skills and get better without wasting a lot of milk. So let's get into it. We're going to need a few things. So we've got some milk, obviously the ingredient there. We've got a couple of different jugs, which I'll go through in a second, just a small jug or a pitcher you might call it. We've got some washing detergent, a trusty little toothpick, which you might need. This is a timber toothpick, not a bamboo one, very important. We've got a thermometer, and that's going to allow us to measure the temperature. These ones have a bit of a gauge on there with green and red for different temperatures, which is great. And we're going to need a cloth, because you do need to be able to clean up after you froth milk. Alright, so I'm just going to put the milk in the fridge because we do want to have cold milk. We've got a beautiful local milk here that we love. It's a full fat as well. So if you're going to be practicing, I would definitely start with a full fat milk and then start moving on to things like light, skim, or even your alternative milks. But we'll come back to that in other videos to help you make sure you're doing the right things for those different types of milks as well. Now, there's a lot of ways we can actually practice without wasting a lot of milk. So we've got a simple technique that we're going to use, and that involves using water and dishwashing liquid. So we've just got some beautiful green tea and lime liquid dishwashing. You can use whatever you like, just something that's going to make bubbles. And I want to start with using a 600 ml jug. It's a bit easier to work with to get your technique, and then you can progress down to a smaller 400 ml jug if you're making milk for a 1 cup option. You may have gone out and got yourself this kind of style jug. This is a Motta jug, and it basically has a beautiful little pot in the bottom. And that'll just allow a different frothing technique and obviously a very customized pouring font. So we're going to go into those a little bit later when we're looking at latte art as well. So I'm going to put that out the way, but you can still use the same jugs if you've got those. And of course we've got an espresso machine. This is a new out of the box Isomac Duo, I don't know how you pronounce it, there's lots of different ways. And we just have an easy turn dial steam here. You might have a high-end espresso machine which has a lever, or you may have a machine that is not a single boiler like this one, where you're going to have to turn on and off your boiler to create steam or create hot water through your head. In this unit, we don't have to do that. So it is still the same techniques that you've got to think about when you're doing milk. So the control is going to be up to you, but we do have to purge our steam wand before we do anything. So my first tip is purge, and purge some more. So beforehand, you've got to purge the water that comes out because the steam is going to cool. And you can see there is a fair bit of water that's going to be in there afterwards. Once we've frothed our milk, afterwards, we want to purge again into the tray because the milk can actually suck back up into that steamer, and we want to give it a wipe as well. And then another purge. So purge, it keeps your steamer nice and clean, which maintains the pressure that you're having when you're trying to froth your milk. Okay, so there's a lot of different techniques out there that have been taught for a long time. And we've managed to teach a lot of people how to froth milk and progress very quickly. So this is the technique that we use commercially. It's adaptable anywhere you go. So hopefully it's going to help you. Like I said, we're going to stick with the 600 ml jug. I'll put this one out the way for the moment. I want to take you through the process. With your individual machine, the steam pressure is going to be your biggest variable. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there about steam, what I want you to do is use full steam. Always turn it all the way on or all the way off. As soon as you start to put variables on that pressure, you're really going to struggle with the milk. We want to have control, and that is the one thing that we do have the ability to control. It's all steam or no steam. Then you just need to know how to handle it in your jug. So we've got some water in the jug now, and I'll come back to that dishwashing liquid in just a second. There's a lot of different things that people are doing out there to froth milk, and I'll just run through a few of them. The first one is trying to have your jug on a really big angle. Okay, I see this a lot of the time. Now, whether you're holding it by the handle or holding it by the jug, that's really personally choice, that you have. It's just whether you can handle the heat. I don't like to have the jug on an angle because I can't tell how much froth I'm starting with and how much we're ending at. And if we make a mistake, it'll come out all over the top. The other one is a very old technique on how to get a lot of froth. And it's big froth, really big bubbles, which is going up and down. So we don't want to be moving that jug around a lot. We want to keep our froth as consistent as we can. So how do we do this? The key to good milk is creating what's called a microfoam. It's a constant tiny little bubble that we're creating through the agitation of the steam on the surface of the milk that is going to allow the proteins and the sugars to separate from the liquid and give us more volume in that jug. And the key is to be able to control that in a couple of key principles. The first one is the size of the bubble. The second is how long we can introduce that in terms of the temperature of the actual milk. And then the third is how we finish that at the end, whether we're continuing to get froth all the way to the temperature that we want to serve the milk in, or can we actually fold that back through and make that really glossy, silky milk, which some people call wet paint or silky enough to sew with. It's just beautiful, glossy milk that you probably wouldn't even know you've actually frothed it. That's the aim that we want. And that's going to allow us to do latte art and have full control over our pouring abilities in the later videos. So that's our goal for today, and I'm going to show you a tip on how to do this. So let's look at how we actually position our jug for any machine. We're going to start by bringing our steamer away from anything that's going to touch. We want to get that angle pointing down as far as we can. And the easiest way to find our position is use the spout to locate the actual steam arm as a rest, pull it out on an angle, so that this steamer is now in the front third of the actual jug. It's not right up against the wall, it's not buried all the way down to the bottom of the jug, and the little tip is just under the water. Now, if you find that location on all of your different steamers and turn on the liquid, it's going to start to spin straight away. You're going to have to keep focusing on finding this point, because if you're not getting it to spin, you're not going to get great milk. Now, you may have too much steam or not enough steam. And they're the two factors that we need to look at. You've either got a machine that has some really great steam pressure or not enough steam pressure. But the goal's the same. Get it to spin, and spin the whole time. And you need to get it to spin without creating any hiss, which is where that steam is actually touching this top surface of the milk. So I'll show you that now. So just to show you again, we're going to use the tip of the jug to help locate the actual steam arm. We want to have this tip just under the liquid and be in this third of the jug. And as long as we're not touching the edge of the actual jug with that steamer, and we turn this on, we can see the liquid starting to spin. When we create froth, we're actually gently lowering it down just a couple of mils to get that constant hiss. You can see the milk will continue to spin, and we can only do that up to 40 degrees when it's warm. At that point, we just lift up till there's no hiss, continue spinning that liquid till it's too hot to touch, and turn it off. you can hear that is screaming. So this is screaming because it's hot water and it's agitating everywhere and it's heating up. This doesn't happen with milk if you actually have some foam being created. So a lot of people find this screeching noise when they're trying to froth. What's actually happening is you don't have any froth. You've had that tip too far under the milk and you've just been heating it, and it's doing the same thing here. So if you're getting a screech and it's still only warm or colder milk, lower your jug to bring that tip up to the surface of the milk, and that's going to give you some foam, and that noise will disappear like that. If you've got your foam and you're still stretching and you're rising up your temperature above 65 and hitting 75 or 80 degrees, if you want to get really, really hot, that is going to screech and scream at you as well. And that's just because the milk is just so hot. So we don't want to go too hot, and we don't want to go too cold, but they're the two factors that screeching is going to occur. So when we look at milk, we've got to think about the flavor of milk. Now, I know you go to a cafe and you get a latte and you start walking away and you have your first sip, and you might be the person that says, oh, it's too cold, or oh wow, it's way too hot. And that's really because the barista has made it possibly how they want to make a cup of coffee. And I want you to enjoy your cup of coffee. So just to talk about the temperature of milk, there's a few things we want to consider. There's some tests that have been done, and milk is the best tasting or the sweetest and the creamiest and have the best microfoam at about 63 degrees. So most cafes that love coffee are going to serve coffee between 60 and 65 for their milk-based coffees. I myself love a bit cooler. I actually go more around 50 to 55 degrees because I think that gives it a much sweeter taste. And if you want it really hot, you would probably be frothing up to 75 or 80 degrees. Some people want to burn it. That's fine. You can go as hot as you like and take that thermometer all the way through if you like. But I do urge you to try and taste milk a little bit cooler. It's going to make your espresso taste a lot nicer, creamier, richer, and a lot velvety in that mouthfeel. And it's going to accentuate the beautiful flavors of your espresso that you're using in your milk coffee, rather than it be thin and watery and the foam just separate on the top of that coffee. And underneath you're going to have a very tarty, very acidic, almost like an instant coffee kind of taste underneath that foam because it's separated. So with a thermometer, there's a couple of great ones that you can use that give you plenty of information on what's happening. So we've got usually a green space, which is the optimal part for frothing temperatures. Then we've got a red section, which is saying, hey, we're getting a bit dangerous in those temperatures. And then once you go past that, obviously you're creating a super hot cup of coffee. And that might be what you enjoy. Just to make sure you're aware, use a thermometer, measure what's happening, and taste the differences. Okay, so I'm going to show you what happens with the temperature and talk you through how to froth milk. So we're going to put our thermometer in on an angle which is going to be opposite to where the steamer is going to be sitting in the jug. This steamer is on the left-hand side of the machine, so I'm going to place in that thermometer so that it actually goes over to the right-hand side of the jug, so that when I sneak my steam arm in after my purge, it's tucked in underneath that thermometer. We don't want to be measuring the steam temperature, we want to measure the liquid that has had a chance to go all the way around the jug and come back to that thermometer. So let's have a closer look in here. We've got water. Now we've got to remember that this tap water is already sitting at about 20 degrees. When we do this with milk, we're going to have a much longer time because milk will be starting from about 4 degrees being cold out of your fridge. So we've got our tip just under the liquid, our jug is nice and flat and level, and our steamer is coming in on that beautiful angle. We're going to turn on our steam. We're going to get a constant hiss. You can only do this up to 40 degrees. If you're going to get hiss after 40 degrees and try and create bubbles, it's going to have a very separated effect to that milk. And the bubbles are going to be large and it's going to be very marshmallowy. So only introduce the hissing up to 40 degrees And then after that, we're going to be folding it back through, and we're going to finish this at 65 degrees. Now, when we're using a thermometer, we stop 5 degrees before our desired temperature, because naturally it will continue to rise. I'll show you now. Turning it on all the way, the liquid's spinning. We're going to lower this to get a constant hit. We can keep doing that for a cappuccino, up to our 40 degrees. We're going to lightly lift that jug up, just until the noise stops. You can see it's still spinning. This is folding all that froth back beautifully in. It's getting a bit hot to hold now, so I'm just going to grab the jug. I'm going to keep going till that reaches 60 degrees. And turn that off. And you can see it's rising up nearly to 65 degrees there. Now that's the technique that we're going to use. It doesn't matter whether it's soy, almond, or whatever milk, but now I'm going to show you how to control the actual bubble size that you're getting. And this is where the dishwashing liquid comes into it. So I need to start with some cold water, so give me a sec. So I've shown you how to create the actual hissing, which is creating the foam. And now you could use a lot of milk just trying to practice this and obviously waste that milk. So what my tip is to get 1 drop of dishwashing liquid, starting with cold water every single time you do this, and just drop in 1 drop. Ooh, the machine's hot, don't touch the front. Open it up first. Ooh, I got 2, but that'll be all right. So what we're going to do is the exact same technique, and we want to end up with a nice, beautiful, white, sort of milky looking foam on the top. If we end up with dishwashing liquid bubbles from your sink, it's just obviously way too much agitation. We've gone too aggressive with that hissing. So I'll show you now. Remember, purge first to get rid of your water. Locate your steamer down as far as you can. Pop the jug in and under to try and get the right angle. We're going to turn this on, get it spinning with no hiss, and lower that jug. You can see the vortex is happening to get a constant little hiss. Okay, I've got enough foam now, so I'm just going to lift it up to get no hiss. We're just heating the milk, trying to keep that vortex going the best we can. Okay, it's getting quite hot now. And we're going to stop at our 60 degrees. All right. Remember to get your cloth, always wipe your steam arm and give it another squirt. It's got to purge that milk out. It does create a vacuum and suck it up and blocks up your tips, and you don't want to block up your tap either. So you can have a look at that milk. You can see that we've got some big bubbles, some small bubbles, but underneath that there is actually some really nice small bubbles that we would consider to be some microfoam. Once you get past there, you can see it's really fine, beautiful, kind of looks like that glossy milk. And that's what we want to try and achieve when we're frothing with dishwashing liquid. You can keep doing that as many times as you like. You're obviously not wasting a lot of milk, but once you get to this beautiful, nice, sort of milk-looking texture, you know you can go and practice with milk, and you'll be able to make a great cup of coffee straight away. So I just showed you how to froth milk with a 600ml jug and the dishwashing liquid. And different machines have different steam pressures. So a hack I want to show you when you're learning is using a toothpick. So I'm going to grab that now. Remember, it's got to be a timber toothpick, not the bamboo ones. It's got to be the round style. I'm going to remove the tip off this machine. And you can see this is a 2-hole steamer. I'm going to block one of these holes up by putting the toothpick in and snapping it off. Now, I can't do that while it's off because I need to make sure that I'm blocking up the hole that is the closest to the machine. So I'm just going to pop that back on. I'm going to have a look underneath. And it's just here, so I'm going to pop that in now. Move that out of the way for you. Pop that in there. Jam it in nice and hard. And you'll want to snap it off. Now that's blocking the hole up with timber. Because that steamer has water in it, we need to use that water to come down the wand and expand that timber. So gently, just turn on the steamer, and that hot water is expanding that timber. Now it's stuck in there, and you can see we've got a 1-hole steamer. So it's going to slow it right down, change the pressure of your machine, and I'll now show you with the dishwashing liquid how much that's going to change the consistency of the bubble that we're going to get. Okay, so we've got our 1 drop of dishwashing liquid. I'm just taking the thermometer out of it for the moment, just so that we can show this easier for you. Remember, purge first, pop the jug under, get that tip just under the liquid, it's not touching the side wall, nice and flat level jug. You turn it on, it gets spinning. Now I'm going to lower that jug constantly just to get a nice constant little hiss. You can already see that the bubbles are smaller, it's looking quite milky looking with that agitation happening. Okay, that's getting warm now, so I'm just going to lift it back up. Keep it spinning all the way through, right up to your 60 degrees. A little bit hot now. And then we're going to turn it off. Okay, we're going to clean up our steamer again, give it a squirt. Now just be careful, if you do block up your steamer with one of the toothpicks, there is a bit of extra pressure that's in that steam wand that needs to release. So don't go popping your hand under there too early because it will take a little bit longer to come out. Now, have a look at the lovely glossy kind of milk that we've managed to get today. You can see there's a couple of big bubbles, which is fine. These usually just tap out. Okay, but this is such a nicer, silkier, glossy looking style milk. And how we actually assess our milk is when we're swirling it. So if you're not too sure what it's going to look like, when you swirl it and you look up the side of your jug, you start to see the consistency of your bubbles. Bigger ones or smaller ones right up on the sides here. And that's why we tap the bubbles out and you can give it another swirl. So it's a really good way of assessing what your milk consistency of your microfoam is, just by looking up the side of those jugs. So that tip there can just make you change from a really average milk frother to a pro just by making that toothpick change. So give it a go. If you're really trying to froth in a smaller jug, something like this, a 400ml or a 350ml jug, that toothpick trick is going to make a world of a difference. So give it a go. Or if you're using a bigger jug, it may be better for your machine to keep both the tips open to create the pressure to move such a bigger volume of water or milk. So it's up to you, have a try. I'd love to hear what's working for you at home. So I want to cover off just one thing about the steamer. A lot of people get a jug of some sort and put water in it and pop it underneath the machine and leave it there to soak overnight. I don't recommend that at all. I do a lot of machine work, and the problem is that water will suck back up into that valve and actually wreck it. So the best way to clean your steamer is to definitely remove the tip. Okay? And you can clean the bottom here and clean the holes out very easily. Obviously, if you've got a toothpick in there, you can replace that. But if you've got a big build-up on any machine, the best thing is get yourself a cloth, soak it really wet, and then wrap it around it. And then just let it sit there. Go off and clean your heads or do other bits and pieces. But if you come back in about 5 minutes, any milk, even the hardest milk that's been there, will be soft, and you'll just be able to then wipe it and it'll come off beautiful every time. Don't go getting a spoon and starting scratching in under the holes, because all you're doing is making little lines everywhere for milk to build up on. And that's going to wreck it and make it worse and actually catch more milk over time. So hope that helps you just on a bit of a maintenance side of things. So all this talk about milk, I want to make a cup of coffee so I can show you what you can do with these techniques. Let me get into it. Okay, so I've got a beautiful shot of espresso. Let's do the milk. Now, the amount of milk in this jug and how much to start with, we're going to come back to that in other ones, other videos in the future. So let me just froth this for you. Remember, purge first. We're going to get that tip in just under the liquid. Get that spinning. It's very cold, so we're going to lower that. Get the surface spinning. I do have this toothpick, so this is going to make a beautiful constant little hiss. It's going to take a lot longer to froth because we started from 4-degree milk, not now 20-degree water. You can see the vortex that's happening there. The level of the actual jug is rising up as we're getting more hiss, we're getting more foam in there. Now, I didn't put a thermometer in there for you, but I'll pop one in right now. Okay, so you can see that I've gotten all of my foam that I need before 40 degrees. And the longer time you have to keep folding that through, the tastier, the better that milk's going to be. Now, I did say to you I like a cooler drink, so I'm going to stop this right on that 50. Remember to clean up our steam wand, give it a squirt, keep that nice and maintained. Remove our thermometers. Now have a look at our milk. If you had some big surface bubbles there, they would have risen to the top, and you want your milk just to sit for about 10 seconds. Tap out the bubbles. Sometimes you might get some milk fireworks. Giving it a swirl. And you can see that gloss has just really come up beautiful on that milk. The edge of the actual jug, you can see that it's all pretty much the same consistency. That is a beautiful milk. So, how to pour? Well, swirl your espresso, swirl your milk, get in there, get some foam in, get around that cup. There you go, there's a little bit of a heart, with a bit of a tulip base on it. We'll get into latte art another time. Thanks very much guys for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. Enjoy your coffee.